and if we forget, let us know. So my name's Alana Blanchard. I work for the city. I'm here with a small portion of the design team. On the city side, myself, Justin Rabideau, Director of Public Works, Jennifer Murray, Library Director, Mark Cole, who's on the Library Board of Trustees. And I know there are many Library Board of Trustees members here. I don't know if you could raise your hands. Just, you guys have been doing a great job getting the word out and raising awareness about this project. Also, there's an advocacy committee, and I'm sure they'd like members if you want to be to participate in this project. And then we have our designers. So that team is led by Steve Roy of Wayman Lamphere, and he's here with Tim Duff and Michael Minadeo, thank you. And also Dennis Humphrey, who's a partner architecture firm on this project, is here from Denver, Colorado, to present to you tonight their recommendation for a library at City Hall. Before Dennis takes over, I wanted to remind you that if the fire alarm goes off, the exit is right over here, not where you came in, and the bathrooms are down the hall on the left. So welcome, and I appreciate you coming out, whether this is your first night or you've been here for 5 meetings. Thank you. Dennis.
Okay. Well, thank you. Just out of curiosity, how many people have not been to any of the meetings? None of them. Wow. Okay. And how many have come either Saturday or last Thursday? Yeah. Okay. So good. We got you on the edge of your seat, and we'll get you on the edge soon. Okay. So welcome. This is really an interesting evening. A lot of excitement, and our design team, Steve and Mike and Tim, have been working very, very hard to come up with what we think is the preferred option. So over the past few days, we presented 3 options. The Center of Activities, which we called Option A, Option B, the Urban Oasis, and C, the Step Terraces. And we took a lot of comments through our presentations. And we also had them posted at the library on the glass wall there. And we stood there and took comments last Friday and had a good response. But a summary of the 3 options were that in Option A, one of the big moves was to put the auditorium on the 2nd floor, because we thought maybe it would allow for that space to be recognized a little in a special manner and not just down on the ground floor. And it was interesting, we met with some middle school students and they told us, that's a great idea, because when we have intermission, we won't be going out there and looking at people that have to come in and pay their taxes. So they I thought, were very perceptive. And so that was one of the big moves, was putting the auditorium on the 2nd floor. But we also had a 2-story lobby that also visually would lead you up to that 2nd floor auditorium. And we also had meeting rooms up there, and it was a building that kind of followed the street, Market Street, so everybody realizes where the site is, right? Even you folks who did. Yeah. Okay. All right. So Allard Square is the property right here. We're right to the east of it. The new street that we're creating is a relocation of the entry drive to the school. And so we had this outdoor space here in the corner on the 2nd level. And as you can see, sustainability is a very important component of our design efforts. So we're looking at solar panels and green roofs and outdoor terraces and things like that. So the Center of Activity, Option A, was a 2-story lobby and a 2nd floor meeting rooms. On Option B, we focused on a corner plaza. Because it being a civic building, we felt as though maybe there was a great opportunity to create a small space where people could come and get together as a town and celebrate, protest, have face painting, doing all those kinds of things you might do outside. And then we also created a third floor reading room because we heard from a number of you that typically in a public building that the public doesn't get to go to the top floor. And I shared a library in San Diego when I was here in January that the 7th floor of a 7-story building is where the main reading room is, and they have all these wonderful views. So we thought, let's put the reading room on the very upper floor, best views, most daylight, all that. So that was a big concept there. And then we moved the children's library to the 2nd floor. So I didn't mention it, but in the first scheme, the children's library was on the 1st floor, so you could walk into the library, and the children's area was close by, so we're not taking strollers upstairs and things like that. Whereas in the second option, we decided that we would try it on the 2nd floor. So then the third option, we called the step terraces, was one where we had the adult fiction and nonfiction all on the same floor, whereas the other two options had the split. So the nonfiction was downstairs and nonfiction was upstairs. And this also allowed us to put children's downstairs. And we had these open terraces that stepped back from the street. And I should also mention, we put the auditorium down on the 1st floor here, and we put the auditorium down on the 1st floor there. All of these buildings were 50,000 square feet, plus or minus. So there really wasn't one that was larger or smaller. We accommodated all the functions that we've been talking about in all of them. So it was just a matter of where we located them on the site and within the building, so we could take advantage of the views and how you came into the building and experienced it, etc. So those are the three options that we presented. So after the meeting, we asked everybody to go back in each one of the corners, and we had a board and an architect there, and we asked people to write down their comments. So the infamous Post-it notes that you all have, we're still seeking information because we're still got a long journey to go before this building will be open, and we want to make sure that we're getting everybody's input. So speaking of everybody's input, just in the past couple of days, we've gotten over 450 comments. That's huge. I mean, that is really filling our inbox. And we're getting a lot of great ideas that are happening here. And so Tim went through and itemized what was pro and con. So typically green is a pro and red is a con, and I think yellow is a neutral. So you can see that, you know, there's a lot of green under this. This is one of the options. We did it for every one of the options. We did it for every part of the library. And we had them all tabulated. And they were very meaningful. In addition, many of you then went home and sent additional comments in. And we've read all those. So we've gotten quite a bit of input. And as it says in the bottom, it helps define priorities. So we want you to know that we've been listening. So we'll start off with what we heard you didn't like, okay? So the exterior of option C was a bit boring on the outside. So there was a sense that maybe there was a bit more animation and more like for the other two, but that was just one person. But we heard that from many comments, that option C wasn't necessarily the preferred exterior. The second floor auditorium wasn't desired, except for those teens. But it was something that everybody felt as though coming to the lobby of the building and going into the auditorium, which is a multi-purpose room. It'll have tiered seating for about 100. This is where council might meet. This is where meetings like this might occur. Well, everybody felt, most people felt, it should be on the ground floor. The children's library on the second floor was not something people liked. Fiction and nonfiction split. There was, that wasn't preferred by those who saw it. And then also the amount of exterior space. I think it says something about it's snowing outside, isn't it? But it was something to the effect that we're in Vermont, and, and we can only use the outdoors, an outdoor space like that so many months out of the year. So that was really, that's just the highlights of the comments that we heard from folks. So moving on, then what we did here is that the exterior of option B was preferred. And I think one of the things about the preference of option B is it had a roof on the very top where that reading room was, that some people called it a scoop, but it was something that became very special. The plan of option C was the most efficient use of space, most bang for the buck. And when we talk about the most bang for the buck, we're not just talking about opening day, we're talking about the longevity, the operating of the building. And so we're looking at it from a library operating standpoint. And so that's where we had the fiction and nonfiction together, and it seemed like it might work better. The auditorium I mentioned on the first floor. The children's library is preferred on the first floor. Another fiction and nonfiction together, like the single floor for all adult books. And the third floor reading loft, we loved it. Lots of quiet space, great views, a wonderful place to be. So those are some of the things that we heard. So what will it look like?
Camel.
All right.
It's designed by a committee, right?
Yeah, no, it won't be a camp. So what we have done over the past few days, we met with the core team, and we met ourselves, and the design team, these three gentlemen have been working feverishly and trying to come up with a solution that accommodates all the desires. And so I'm building it up, right? But this is where we think we are. Now, we didn't have a lot of time, obviously, because our last meeting was on Saturday. But this is what we're looking at from the option D, as we're calling it, the reimagined option. And you can see that we have the roof scoop of sorts, the third floor reading room. We have these large openings of glass that look out to the city, to the south, bringing in lots of daylight. We have a smaller plaza in the front. We have the entry coming into the building here. We have some special places happening up on this level. We have a meeting room that's going to occur in this area here. And we have a wall that starts to kind of define the street, the curvature of Market Street. And we have a very animated pedestrian experience, which is what we want to create along Market Street, because it wants to be a very downtown, urban, pedestrian street. So, and then this is the street going back to the school, and we have lots of glass. And we aren't showing the street trees and things like that here, but just to give you an idea of the architecture, that we have a two-story base, and then we have the celebrated third floor. So how will that work? All right, so in plan, again, the children's area is down on the first floor. We have a senior area down here. We have the auditorium down here. We have the clerk's office down here. And the entry into the building is right here. So what we heard is that the lobby should be something to be celebrated, but not overly grand. So we only have a very small portion of it that might be 2 stories. But we come in to the lobby, and we have the information desk that's right adjacent to the city clerk's office. So they're somewhat shared. So that can be a one-stop shop. We have a stairway here that pokes out, so it can be all glass and open and very inviting. We have down here an area that we can have seating, that people can have coffee, can have their lunch, just sit there and celebrate along the street. So we have this lobby area that's appropriately scaled to allow for people to come into the information desk, or we can come this way to the library. We also heard from a number of people that we have been providing an entry off the north from the parking lot to the school. And there's a sense that we had it maybe too narrow and it wasn't as inviting, that there may be folks coming in that direction. So we widened that up a bit and we made it a bit more celebrated, but this is still the front door. And we pushed the auditorium over slightly, but this is still the same auditorium configuration. We have storage rooms, and we have the ability that we can come in and unload musical instruments or equipment that's used in the presentation that can come from that side. And then we also have restrooms that are located back here that we're looking at having, I'll call them single stall restrooms that are private, as opposed to the traditional kind of larger restrooms. And that's all off the hallway here, so that people going to this auditorium for events are a little bit separated from those taxpayers over there. But we also have this multi-purpose room that can accommodate between 30 and 50 people. We've made it bigger. We heard that there was a need for making those spaces bigger. So we enlarged this room. We have a kitchen back here. And this room can be accessed off the lobby, or it can also be accessed from the library. So it can be used by both. Yes, sir?
Do you prefer to take questions on a slide like this while you go along, or do you prefer to wait till the very end, even though we've gone way past the slides?
Why don't we do this? Why don't I go through the, thank you for your question. So the question was, would you prefer to wait or ask questions now? I think what I'd like to do is I'll go through this slide and then you ask questions. So that, and if it's something that's up on the second floor, I'll just say that's where it is. But as opposed to just interrupting, if that's okay. So we created the multi-purpose room as kind of the hub of all these functions down here. So that's how the shared spaces are in the darker yellow, the city spaces are in the blue. The common public spaces, like the lobbies and hallways and restrooms, are in this sort of grayish color here, and then the library is the lighter yellow. So we come into the library at this point, and we have this entry sequence here. We have this plaza, little plaza space outside that we can look out to and we can see into. And we have a service desk right here. So this would be the main circulation desk. So when you walk into the library, the librarians will be there to greet you, ask you how they can help you, or you can just walk to the children's area or to the living room, which is going to be focusing on a senior area down here. We're going to have a fireplace. We're going to have large print books, periodicals. We'll have seating that is a little bit different construction than we might in some of the other softer seating areas. So that again is going to be glassed in down here in this area here. And then we have a stair that goes up to the second floor, or an elevator that goes to the second floor. Or if we're going into the children's area, we have a defined children's area with this wall kind of going like this. We're exploring a way to bring the bookmobile into the library so that it's kind of a feature that will be used for as you enter the library, the children's library. So it might be a part of it somewhere in here. We have the children's service desk here, so they're in line of sight with the service desk here, so that in the event that staff needs to come out and help, they can do that. And then we have the children's area here with a tween room, activity rooms, and things like that happening back here. We have a children's family restroom here. We have some offices, and we have the staff processing books back in this point. And then we have the juvenile fiction and nonfiction and the picture books, easy readers, and seating along the windows. And we have a story time area right here. We're not going to have a room for that, but we're going to have an area that may have a special ceiling, may have a special floor, etc., that children can easily come in here. We can park strollers and that kind of stuff over along here. So the children's area works very nicely and is contained acoustically. It can also gain access to the multi-purpose room if there were a program that wanted to take place there. So we've created this really special area as you enter. Maybe we've had some discussion about the Friends of the Library book sale kiosk taking place there, and I think there's been some discussion, yes and no, so we're exploring how that might work. But all of this area right here will be a really wonderful place to come in, very inviting, and then you would come up to the second floor. There's actually a space where we could have some seating here on this landing between the two floors, and then the adult collection is upstairs. So I'll ask for if there are any questions about what I just shared. Yes, sir.
Two. One, in an earlier version on the first floor, there was, I think, quite a bit of interest in a cafe kind of thing where people could take that, eat food and either eat there or move out a little bit outside during those 6 months when you can. Has that disappeared?
No, we still have the opportunity, so we do have some opportunity to have some of that happening here, and we're still wanting to look at the opportunity to have, whether it be a garage door or some kind of ability to come in and out here. And to do something in here, we're still looking at that. So the question was, are we still looking at the cafe? I'm sorry I didn't repeat it.
And the second one was, is the separation between the senior area and the children sufficient so that the seniors who might prefer less noise are balanced between the parents who would like access to the kids on the first floor?
I think there is sufficient spacing between here and here. It doesn't look like it, but this is a fairly large size building. And I'm going to guess, Tim or Michael, you think this is what, 50 feet or so?
About 50, 55 feet.
So it's like from here to that corner.
But there is a barrier for the sound.
There's a barrier right here.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. So the question was about, I'll get better at this. The question was about, is there a separation from children's to the senior area? So I'm going to ask this gentleman next.
I had three. The access at the rear of the building, will that enable kids from the school to come directly into the library?
They can't come, no, they wouldn't come directly into the library, they could come into the building.
Well, I mean into the building and then access the library that way. And the second question was, how much smaller is the plaza than it was in option B?
How much smaller is the plaza than it was in the former option B?
It's actually, there's a way to look at it that it's actually bigger because we lowered the building to the street level. In the original scheme, we were up about 30 inches, so there was a separation between the streetscape and the actual hard plaza itself. And we've moved the ramp and lowered the building, so it's a continuous space from the curb and the tree belt right up to the front door.
And the third question,
Go ahead.
which is the most important one for me, is it possible to remove some of those sharp corners, two of them which are which define the plaza?
These corners here?
That one, no, one where your finger is, and then that one, yes.
Yes, we can do a lot of
It's a very
things. So the question was, can we remove
soften it
those
up.
corners? And yes, we're not quite into the architecture yet. So this is still a piece in evolution. Did you want to say something, or?
We are still exploring options for shifting the building a little bit in order to obtain additional plaza space.
Okay, so we are looking at additional plaza. I failed to mention that in the other option, we had the ramp was coming underneath the building, and we have now moved it over. And when we came under the building, we had to raise it up. So we're raising it up 30 inches or something like that. So now the building is down at grade. So we don't have stairs and ramps and things like that. It's completely accessible, et cetera. So I'm losing track, but I'm going to go row by row.
I just was curious, if the Friends have their kiosk, what about storage for their continuing change of inventory?
Yeah, we have some space for that, and that's something that we have to work on a little bit more. But, keep writing those comments down, So you remind us, and I'm going to come across the second row here.
Yeah, I'm wondering about the small spaces that are next to the staff space. There's a bathroom, and then the other 3 rooms are for staff?
One is the children's librarian. The children, I don't know if it's a manager or a children's librarian. And another is like a study room, and we haven't defined every
Okay.
space.
And my other question was, for the expansion of the multi-purpose room, because there wasn't anything that large on any other plans, was there other program space that was taken away from some of the other floors in order to make that happen?
Okay, the question was, in order to make this room bigger, what did we give up? Well, we were a little more creative, and we're a little oversized in a couple of things that were happening over on the other side than what the program was. So it was just going through and refining, and knowing that we had to find more space for that room and make it a higher priority. So we found the space.
Okay, but it didn't take away from other meeting rooms kinds of things?
No, it was, as we'll get up,
It took away from the lobby space, basically?
more or less. Yep,
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
yes.
On the staircase where you say there is a landing, it might be just the way it's visualized there, but does it literally jut out from the building?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so it's
That's
that,
great.
it's that kind of overlook, that you can be out, cantilevered out over the
Yeah,
sidewalk,
That's great.
looking down the street. Wouldn't that be very cool?
It will be,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yes,
So
Thank you.
then there will be natural light in the stairwell?
absolutely. Yeah, this would be as glass as we could possibly make it, within reason. But yes, lots of daylight coming down in the stair. We're trying to make that, going up to the second level, a very inviting and welcoming experience, as well as this stair over here. We heard some of the concerns were that our stairs for the city hall were fire stairs, and they didn't look like they would be encouraging people to go up other than the one monumental stair we had. So we're trying to express these so that people can look out, bring daylight in. They're inviting spaces.
Is there an elevator too?
There is an elevator for the
Okay, right there.
library and
Okay,
an
got it.
elevator for the city hall.
Okay,
So we come into information desk, and if somebody says, the city manager will meet you at 1 o'clock for your appointment, you need to go to the 3rd floor, you take the elevator or you take the stair, right there. Okay, is there no one in the 3rd row? Okay, last row, you.
What's the topography of the auditorium?
It is a flat floor,
Okay.
and we're using a series of seating that folds down, and it's sort of like a gymnasium type seating, only it has theater type seats in it. And it's a same exact design that was used at Studio One at Vermont Public Radio. It's really a neat thing, because it folds back up, and we can do all kinds of, yoga, or we can do other kinds of activities in here as a flat floor, or it can fold down and we can have a great concert like we had in here on Sunday, only it will be in a much more acoustically appropriate and setting.
Rate.
Yes?
The seating is rate,
Raked,
yes.
raked. So it's not going like this, but it's like that. Okay? Yes?
I was just wondering about the tween space there in the back corner. And can you just give me an idea of like either the dimensions or the square footage, or it's hard for me to conceptualize it, so.
Yeah, so this is about 20 by 20, so it's about 40 feet, or 400 feet rather. So a standard school classroom is about 900 square feet, so it's about half that. And we're actually thinking about not calling it tweens, but calling it middle school or something. We're working with
What did they want? They wanted,
No,
in
it
the
made-
desert.
Urban Oasis.
Oasis, they wanted it to
Oasis.
be the oasis.
yeah. So we want to do something for them. Yes.
Can the new larger meeting room be subdivided in case 2 groups want to meet at the same time?
Can the new multi-purpose room?
Right.
Yes, it could be subdivided.
Right, so you have more flexibility.
Yep. Yes. I'm going to go back over here. I'll come. Yes, sir. Ma'am, I'm sorry.
That's right. A couple of questions. One, the plaza, is that the part that just in right near the entrance?
Well,
So
it's
that's
really,
what we-
it's really about, our build-to line is really out here.
That's
Well,
what I
actually,
thought you had.
yeah.
So will there be, like, if the children's, if they want to go outside and do an outdoor activity, a reading or something like that, can they do that in that little area there?
Sure, why not?
Okay.
Yes,
Was
so-
there-
I mean, if it's programmed, and again, there could be all kinds of wonderful things that children could do with their children's librarians. They're very creative.
Or, and a couple other things, there's tweens, or, you know, or Oasis, or whatever the kids, well, they'll have to go through the kids' area to get to their space.
Yeah,
Whether to flip it,
we've talked about that, and we're working on that because some of them that we've met with are reading material from the second floor, not from the children's area, and yet they don't feel necessarily comfortable being with the teens. So we're working on those relationships.
or just flipping, having them closer to the stairs so they could just
Right.
scoot back, or that back stairway, where it's, so the tweens and the activity of those two flip,
Sure, that's a great idea.
you know, that way they.
Make sure
can
you write that down.
Yeah.
My memory bank will go. But that's a great idea. Thank you. Yes?
This isn't directly about the library, but something that was said made me realize that I may have missed it in earlier meetings, but none of this space is going to double as a senior center, correct?
That is my understanding. We're not creating we're not replicating.
It's not specifically, but it will have a lot of senior-specific spaces. So spaces with seating that's appropriate to seniors, spaces where you can play card games or board games, places, there might be age-specific computer monitors and programs, so.
Yeah, that's great. I just wondered what has happened to the idea of a new senior center.
Right. Right, and so this will have, we've also talked about a coffee station inside the senior area. So a coffee station, so working to make this area that's in the front of the building, right near the main door, on the ground floor, as welcoming and as conducive to not just reading, but more social activity as well.
Right, but we don't have a senior center in our
Correct.
plan.
Not a specific
A place for
staff.
jazzercise or...
No, there will be rooms that can be programmed for some of the senior activities. So I think Jennifer shared with us that she's been talking to EEE about having their programming making sure that our meeting spaces is conducive to their programming. And we've also talked to Recreation about whether the lunches might be here because there is a kitchenette and a multi-purpose room, as well as other wellness activities that are good for either hard floors or soft floors, not necessarily something like jazzercise, which might be really loud, but the more mindfulness type activities.
All right, other questions? We'll come back to the front. Rick, go ahead.
I know that in the overall city center, there's a lot of interest and people think it's pretty important that we have a place for farmers markets or for those kind of activities. And the question is it big enough to accomplish it, or if not here, where?
So that plaza space is probably, it would be a bit of a squeaker for a farmer's market, but we are exploring ways to make it larger.
And is this the main and only option in city center, so we should really focus and worry about that a little
It's
bit?
the only one we have in front of us. So it doesn't mean it's the only option, but it's the only one that's in front of us now. And I certainly, there are options that might be parks, but also we can look at streets as well.
Maybe I could comment for Rick. We could close Market Street for the farmers market once a week.
Oh, boy.
That's it, happens all the time. Yes?
Moving outside the building, Howard Square just to the left, I assume that's a drive to get into their underground parking.
That is correct.
And is that roughly the scale, so it's really gonna be that, the buildings are gonna be that far apart?
Right now, we've got 45 feet between here and here.
Super.
And that is the access to some of the parking for Allard Square. Right now, on their drawings, it shows it kind of coming out here, so we're going to take it to the north, and it makes our building more cost-effective. All right, any other questions on this floor? Move on?
Let's go.
Let's go.
Okay, so we're going up to the second floor. We're on this really wonderful daylit stairway with some seating up there, or we're taking the elevator, and something happened.
Elevator number.
All right, so the second floor is for the library, except we have these shared spaces, these meeting spaces that are in the darker yellow. So I'll focus on the library first. So we have the stair coming up to this level, and we have another elevator here, which is coming from the first level. So you would arrive at this point, and we have different types of reading areas in different zones. So and when I say reading areas, these are places where people can sit and use their digital device. They can use their laptop. They can read. They can converse with one another. So I don't mean when I say reading areas just to limit it to those particular things. Now, we do have a collection, and we're trying to accommodate a little over 60,000 volumes in the library. So we've got lots of shelving, and we're looking at the shelving predominantly being 5 foot 6 inches high, 5 shelves. And so you can see we've just diagrammatically laid out some of the collection. We put tables of different sorts and soft seating and those types of things. And again, we're not at that level of design yet where we can say exactly, you know, we've got 5 soft seating areas here, whatever. We are showing that maybe these are some computer stations that are right off the stairway here. Looking at fiction and nonfiction on this floor, with, again, trying to animate this wall along the new street with reading areas. We have the service desk in the very center, so the staff can see and be of assistance to all areas of the floor. We also have, this elevator would go up to the 3rd floor, and we have this stair that goes up to the 3rd floor reading loft that's right here. And so also in the very center, we have the digital lab and makerspace. So we, in the previous schemes, had kind of pushed that off to the corner, and now we want to focus it, and we're looking at a lot of the walls around here being glass, so everybody can see in and be welcomed in to participate and get involved in some of these activities that they may not have done before. Again, trying to put soft seating. A lot of times what we do is we'll have a lounge seating that'll have a tablet arm on it that you can put your tablet on, or your computer, laptop, or just sit back and read while you're looking down views of Market Street, or you're just kind of lost on a journey while you're reading a wonderful fiction. So we have, again, more stacks placed back here. We have a meeting room that is sitting on top of the entry vestibule, and so it's kind of this jewel box that's being able to look down on 3 sides, and it's kind of juxtaposed, jutting into the space, so it creates a really nice dynamics. But this will be a very special room for groups to meet. And then along the back side of the building, the north side, which we will have plenty of windows because we've got lots of great north light coming in. We'll have a teen area up here in the corner. We have a meeting room, 20 to 30 people. We have restrooms for the library users. We have the stair from the first floor here. We have a staff area. We have smaller study rooms located around here. And then we have individual study carrels out here. So we've got a variety of seating types, a variety of activity spaces. Alana mentioned board games, puzzles, and things like that are very popular in libraries and in areas like this. So we've got all of this area, fiction, nonfiction, and the teen area back here. The young adult collection is right here. So they have their own space where they have lounge, and they can have a gaming area in there. They can have craft making. They could do collaborative projects. A lot of teenagers are now, most of their work at school is being done in groups of 2, 3, or 4. And so we would have special areas for that. These rooms, this meeting room would be very flexible. And then we have similar size rooms down here that are the darker yellow that are totally shared. And they could be accessed from the city's stair from the lobby here or the elevator. And we have a corridor up, and we have 6 or 8 person meeting rooms or larger meeting rooms here. And these are also available for use by the library. So we're trying to, again, get as many meeting rooms. And in our experience in dealing with libraries today, that's a very popular and very needed demand, is having the ability for community members to come in and meet, have people who are maybe getting together and collaborating on a project together, come in and use these spaces. So the center of the floor is open, and the perimeter is where a lot of the meeting spaces are. And again, there'll be glass here, so that we can see in and we can get the daylight coming through from the north wall. Yes?
Yeah, the darker yellow rooms on the side, is that shared with City Hall?
Shared with City Hall. And they would be programmed so that they would be reserved on a basis where if you wanted to reserve that room and it was open, it could happen. That's kind of how we see that happening in other libraries that we work in that are in shared environments like that. And we're trying to make sure that those spaces are used every hour that the facility is open. That's really the opportunity here. We don't want them to sit there dark or empty. Yes, I'll come back to you.
City Hall, I think, opens at 8. And say there was a meeting that started at 8 up in one of these rooms. I'm concerned about restrooms. The libraries, maybe it will be open at 8, but it hasn't traditionally ever been open at 8 that I know of. So
That is a good point, and the code only requires you have restrooms at one floor adjacent, so we have restrooms upstairs in the other City Hall, or we have the restrooms downstairs. Now, that's not the most convenient, but for those times when the two aren't open, that's one way that we could address it. Or
So they'd either have to go upstairs or downstairs.
if the library is not open. It's the way we have it planned right now, because we're trying to minimize. Now, we could start to move the restrooms back over here, and then they become out of sight for security reasons and things like that for the library. So again, it's a matter of, and you may see those restrooms move around a little bit, but we also didn't want to we put them right by the stair, because this is where we probably wouldn't have daylight coming in, and tried to open up the rest of it. But you
I
bring
guess
up
my suggestion is maybe 2 more restrooms.
2 more restrooms. Okay. Rick, you had a question?
We all know that City Hall does not stay open on most weekends. And would the scheduling be handled on the library side, so that if somebody came in early or on the weekend, that all these questions we're asking are handled, or have we gotten anywhere close to that?
We haven't really gotten into those weeds yet, but we've worked in libraries where, as an example, the City Hall was not open, then the library would be in charge of scheduling those days for those meeting rooms. It's pretty simple.
It'd be
like
a
that.
common back and forth system.
Yeah.
So they're not 2 scheduling blocks.
Yeah, that's the way we've experienced, but that is obviously programmatically, it has to be, a lot of these things has to be addressed as we get further down the road. Yes?
Can you speak a little bit about the digital and maker lab? And more to the point of what goes on there and how much is that room used? And if it isn't used 100% of the time, is that the right location for it?
Okay, so the question is that the right location for the makerspace, digital lab, and will it be used all the time? So a lot of it has to come back to programming and staff. Is there staff who are really trained in wanting to do that type of activity? Now, makerspace doesn't always mean digital either. Makerspace can be a sewing group getting together. It can be something that could even be messy using more artistic type materials. So it's a very wide variety of activities. And what we have seen in libraries today is that it's extraordinarily popular, and putting it right there will then encourage people to come to it, as opposed to putting it off in the corner and not seeing it. But when you're exposed to something, you have a tendency to really get interested in it. So this is something that is very common in libraries today, and being at the heart of it. And just as an example, tonight there's a program at the library on taking photos with your iPhone, and it sounded like it was very popular in terms of people that came to it. So a lot of these things may not be that popular today because there's no programs, but I'll guarantee you that once we start getting something to happen there, it'll really be the spark of everything. In Madison, Wisconsin, they call it the bubbler. And it's right on the sidewalk, it's right there, and people come into it all the time. So just a matter of how it's programmed. And if it weren't programmed, then we can make it a meeting room. You know, it's intended to be a flexible space. So it would not want to be empty and dark and having things sit in there not being used. But I will bet you through a very thoughtful programming process that space will become very, very popular.
Quick comment on that subject. There is a space very similar in size to that at St. Michael's College right now that has, I think, 6 or 7 3D printers, a laser cutter, and I think 2 sewing machines, to give you an idea of the variety that takes place there.
Yeah, I mean, digital sewing machines are fabulous, and 3D printers, CNC routers. I mean, some of these maker spaces look like a wood shop when I was going to school, only today it's all technology, or some of it's craft. So it's really, really very popular, but 6 3D printers, that's pretty spectacular.
It's a college.
Nonetheless, yes.
2 things. Maybe the first one's a question for Jennifer. So the library is now on 2 floors instead of 1, and has 3 circulation desks. 2 on the ground floor and 1 on the second floor. It would almost seem as though we need to expand the size of the library staff because of that.
Being on 2 floors automatically does that, yes. And we've built in some staff into our human resources plan. The circulation is all going to happen at this point. The circulation is all going to happen at the desk, down at the welcome desk. So these other desks, both the children's desk and this upstairs desk, we've been talking about having it be a movable unit so that staff might be in their office with eyes out, and that might be the way to kind of keep an eye open. But if we're having something in the digital maker lab, or if we're having a team program, that we can wheel our desk with a laptop over to wherever we need a staff person to be, so that we're not trying to be, there's no way we can be in every corner at every moment. Yep.
So, and also, let me just add to that, that self-check was something that we heard a lot about, and we anticipate that there will be a lot of self-check stations freeing up staff from those tasks that they do today. So in many respects, by technology, we'll be able to allow the staff to do more things.
Manufacturing. And the second question, maybe for Alona or somebody from the City Hall, is there a plan to charge for the meeting space?
I think all of the how the meeting spaces are scheduled and if there is a cost will be a policy decision. So that's something that will have to be determined later on by the city.
And these are good comments to write down now, because, so, you know, we'll want to have to address them at some point, and
It's also possible that the use of the space through a program, like a recreation program, that has an associated fee. So the cost might not be just a rental cost. It could be you're paying $15 to be in the take a picture with your iPhone class. So we'd love it if these were the type of details we had to figure out. You know, we'd love to be far enough along to be able to answer these types of questions. So certainly a good comment.
these are great questions. So, yes, ma'am.
2 questions. Is there a sight line for staff into the team room? It looks from here.
So
it's
this
obstructed by
this
bookcases.
stair is open, and so there is not as good a sight line as we'd like, but that's exactly why that desk might be moving, because the teens aren't there until 3:30 on a weekday during the school year, and so we wouldn't want to have that desk sitting out in front of there. We'd have it where the adults or the normal customers would be coming. And then with if it were teen heavy, then we could move it back there, as Jennifer mentioned.
Okay, another
Second.
question is, if these are shared meeting rooms on this floor and say they're accessible at times that the library is not open, I just have a concern about the security of the collection up there if there's no library staff there.
There is a hallway right here.
And that sort of locks? and-
Yeah,
oh,
yes.
okay.
So the
Okay.
meeting rooms would not be accessible into the library if the library were not open.
And
Those,
the one that juts out in front isn't.
this one is a
accessible?
different story.
Okay.
That one is more focused on library hours. I'll go back there and I'll come to you in a second. Yes, ma'am.
Would there be a sink or a cleanup area in the Maker digital space?
Absolutely.
Good.
We had a lot of SIG questions on Saturday, but yes, we will have those types of facilities in there to support all types
Right.
of task.
Yeah, my question is for Jennifer. Do you anticipate that the Friends of the Library is going to be moved in with the bookshop and so on, moved into this, or are they gonna stay at Wheeler?
Oh, the Friends of the Library and I have been talking for the whole time I've been here that they would move here.
They would move here?
Yep.
So where would that?
So
It's
they
downstairs.
were on the first floor, and that's a level of detail that just didn't get drawn
Okay,
in.
all right.
So
Just-
there are 2 models that we're considering. One is kind of having the Friends out in the open living room
Out
space.
here.
So that maybe some of those stacks would be their book sale. And the other model that, we don't have a picture of it, is that maybe they would have an actual shop that might open into the library or might be able to open into the lobby so that they could open it, maybe when there was something in the auditorium, whether the library was open or not. So those are kind of the 2 places
Okay.
we're looking at.
All right, just
Yeah.
curious.
There's some great examples of how they might be able to fit right in there, and that if they're not there, we can close it up.
Okay.
Yes, any other questions about this floor? Yes, sir.
The stairwells, are they, the one on the right shows like they're open to the floors. The one on the left, is it more closed off? Like, do they have to have doors? You have to open a door to go in the stairwell? or-
So this stair would be open.
Open.
We can do one open stair.
Yep,
This stair would be more like a fire
Yeah.
stair, only it would be in glass
yeah.
on these sides.
Are there codes about how those stairs can be configured, or the shape of the block that's gonna hold the stairs? Can it be rounded?
Yes, it can pretty much take any shape.
Okay.
It just has certain widths that we have to maintain and handrails and things of that sort. So, but it could be rounded, except we couldn't do a spiral stair because the tread gets too small. We have to have treads of a certain dimension,
So the treads have to be a standard size?
11 inches.
Okay. And so you can't have a spiral thing where you have, different, okay.
No.
Helical stairs.
Yeah, you could do a curved stair like this, but we have to maintain a certain dimension for safety purposes. So, but there's a lot of, we could make that much more imaginative if you wanted. Okay, any other questions? Second floor? All right, so we have, again, the elevator from City Hall lobby here, the stair here. We've got this elevator here, we've got this stair going up. This stair only goes 2 stories. And we've got the stair in the back. So then, the third floor then, in blue, is the city offices. In the darker blue are shared spaces that are city offices, so they could be used by the library or others. And then the yellow is the reading room for the library. So we have the stair that came from the second floor, that is that open stair that comes up here. We have the elevator right here, and we have this reading room. And so we have maybe an area that's more like a classical reading room in a contemporary sense, where these little nooks are here. And we have a fireplace up here. We have some open reading areas, some soft seating, tables, things like that. And then we have an outdoor terrace that opens out to. We also have an area that is open to below, down to the lower level. So that's how the library would work, and it would be accessed from the lower level, although we do have a door here for emergency purposes to get back to that stair. So if you are coming to visit the city manager or planning department, you would come up the stair here or the elevator, and we have planning and zoning here, and the city manager's office is back here. And we just put in another meeting room here, that maybe this is where the boards and commissions meet in this room. It has a very special place looking out over the city. And we have a smaller meeting room here. So again, these 2 meeting rooms could be shared by others. And then we also have the shared city and library employee space. So this is where the wellness center is, where the break room is, all of those things. And we've located it so the library staff could use this stair to come to it from the first floor. And we have an outdoor space for them as well. And we're showing lots of green roof happening around here. So that's how the City Hall space, we haven't gotten into defining exactly all the office space and conference rooms that are built into these spaces, but that's our next step. So are there any questions about this floor? I'll start in the back there.
Is there a provision for library staff on the 3rd floor, and is that something we budget for, a 3rd floor staffing?
So right now, we're looking at this as not being a staffed floor, and we're working with Jennifer and doing some research and finding other libraries that have experienced this. However, we could also have a portable station up there, as we mentioned, doing downstairs. The only access from the library is right here, so we would be able to see if there are people going up there and whether they would need help when we're up there or not. So we're still exploring that, but we did hear that there was a great desire to have this 3rd floor reading space. Other question? Yes?
I'm just thinking about the security of that reading space. Will there be anybody able to look in and just make sure everything is okay in there?
This room, this wall would probably be glass. Yes?
That circle with the lines, is that going to be a skylight or?
No, that's dentistry, something on the floor, and it's just suggesting that maybe in this very center space that we're doing something a little special. Maybe there's a skylight there. Maybe we haven't designed it.
Okay.
It's just suggesting that we're trying to express sort of the formality of how this space and that space relate to one another.
Carousel.
Yes, ma'am.
When you talk about the reading space upstairs and you have the steps, Is there also going to be an elevator?
Yes,
I didn't see where that.
the elevators,
I wondered if that's what that little box was.
yeah, it's supposed to have an exit.
Okay, that's why I didn't check.
We missed that one. But yeah, the elevator goes to that level.
Seemed like-
Yes, ma'am.
The actual roof of this top level, is it green roof and accessible, or is it solar panels?
Well, this roof right here over this space,
Yeah,
okay, so we have right now been showing this as being solar panels.
okay.
And it would not necessarily be accessible for the public. I mean, it'd have to be accessible for servicing.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But this roof would be reserved for renewable energy source up here, and then this is the green roof.
Excellent.
Is it pitched or flat?
We don't make flat roofs, but it's slightly pitched.
And the pitch will the pitch face south?
Yes.
Well, when I say it's not flat, it's, what do we generally do?
It's a low slope roof.
Low slope, there you go. So it's like ½ inch per foot. So it's, water will drain off it.
I'm more concerned with the sun,
When it's these.
facing south.
Okay.
You just place
The
panels.
solar panels will be mounted such that they're capturing the sun. Yes?
How does the number of meeting rooms in this plan compare to what's in existence today?
A lot bigger.
It's significantly greater. I don't have the exact count, but in terms of capacity, this is the primary meeting room. There's a meeting room upstairs, and there's what?
And a smaller one upstairs.
A smaller one. So there's 3 rooms in this building, pretty much, and there's 1 in the library today. So we have, with the auditorium and the multi-purpose room, and then I think there were 4 or 5 on the second floor, and there's 2 here, and there's still going to be some conferencing areas within these spaces. So we have significantly increased it. We can provide that number.
It's just, I was in a building where it was a lot of meeting rooms and they didn't get enough use. And that was wasted space, frankly, so I don't know if that's something to consider, really actual use of meeting room and concurrent use when establishing a role.
I know from our experience in working in libraries that meeting rooms in a public library are high on demand. One library we work in a smaller community, just a little bit smaller than this one, is all of the meeting rooms are reserved online, and they're reserved 3 days in advance, booked, every day. They hold a couple that are, lucky day kind of deal where you can walk in, and if it's open, it's yours. And they limit their use to, 2 hours, or everybody has a different policy, but they're constantly being used, constantly, whether it's HOAs coming to the library, whether it be a club, whether it be somebody starting his business and meeting with a client, or, sometimes it's sort of for-profit driven, which those libraries charge. Typically, they don't charge for nonprofit, but every community has a different policy. But those meeting rooms are packed. And because they're so flexible, and they have daylight, and they have good acoustical separation, which is another requirement, that you're not sitting in a meeting room and hearing the conversation next door, that they're very, very popular. And I would suspect, from what we've heard, that it would be the same here.
And here in City Hall, we are constantly chasing each other from room to room. Meetings are running into meetings because there's a very limited amount of space. So just from the municipal side of our operation, the need for additional rooms is evident multiple times a day in this building, particularly because this room, our largest meeting room, is often programmed for recreation purposes during the day, so it's really not even available to us. So upstairs, where it happened at least twice today, hey, I have the room at 11, should I go somewhere, that type of stuff. So certainly be an advantage as to how the city conducts business as well.
And I think we're seeing a lot of agencies are working more collaboratively and wanting to work in those meeting spaces for solving problems as opposed to doing them independent of one another, which happens in many municipalities where they don't have the place to come together. So I think there's a great opportunity here. Yes?
Where will Parks and Rec be?
There's, the current short-term plan is they are staying in this building.
Okay. So will that be, is that with something in the meeting rooms that you can have, I don't know, what do you call it, when you do meetings by computer?
Teleconference?
Teleconference,
Well-
you know, that kind of thing, that you don't have to pick up and go.
Well, certainly, but a good example is I don't work out of this building. However, I'm here a bunch.
Right.
And it's really not, and I'm further away than this building would be to Market Street.
Right.
So it's not that much of a drain on staff to come and go. And Rec's a little more insular in their
Right.
operations. They're doing so much programming stuff. Yeah.
Constantly. So this space will still be used as multi-purpose?
In the short term, it's undefined, and it's reasonable to assume it might continue in the current fashion.
And then you guys will take over that, I assume? Take over the space with the
Yeah,
city
all that-
offices?
If I may, all that is detail that we're not
Well, it's preserved.
There's no other program use to backfill once planning and zoning and city managers leave the space.
Right.
There's no plan, immediate plan to have someone else come in.
Okay, so we had a question up here.
Yeah, well, I'll make my pitch again that I made Saturday. I'm Jennifer Cookman, and I'm Chair of Recreation and Parks Committee, and I've heard again a question about senior center and other kinds of spaces that can be used. We have no program space at all, and no real indoor activity space. It's either, I've heard that the seniors pack this room on the senior lunches on Wednesdays. And that one lady told me that when she wanted to come to work out for Tai Chi, she would ask, is it going to be in this room or is it going to be in the tiny little room attached to the offices? Because in there, it's a sweat box, and here it's cold. Know what to wear. So in the CIP, there are plans for a recreation center. In the original task force, City Hall, Library, and Rec Center were all going to be in one building and in City Center. And now the library has priority. We on Recreation and Parks Committee, we totally support that, because the library had to move out of the high school, and the library really deserves all of this nice stuff that they're getting. However, it won't solve all of the problems. It won't solve indoor activity space. We need to think about a community kitchen. We have a lot of gardening and agriculture and community gardens going on. It would be nice to have a community kitchen where you can do, cooking classes for people. How do you use all this food that you grow? And other kinds of programming. And our staff on Recreation and Parks, they don't have any program space. They don't have any space right now. They have to use the schools when they're available. We have no space for preschool. We have no space for seniors. We put the seniors on a bus and take them somewhere. That's our programming for seniors. So the library addresses a lot of the needs of South Burlington, but we are also envisioning that there be indoor recreation and program space that is within the purview of the Recreation and Parks Department. So I support this totally, and we will be looking at that, once this is more finalized.
It's good to hear.
Okay. Rick?
It leads to another question. In a broader sense, and I used to be involved in the economic side of planning way back, we always wanted in the city center to bring as many of the activities that drew people as possible to keep the center vibrant. both day and night, which gets into a mix of things involving housing that are not being talked about here. But all of a sudden, I'm beginning to realize that there's a draw by seniors away from the city center and back to here. If you look out a little longer, that strikes me as not optimal. Has there been discussion about that, and how, is there any way to make that integrate further down the road?
location of a senior center, rec programming and so on, that location has not been determined yet. So that's in the future planning stages.
But is it being considered for city center?
Yeah, there are many ongoing discussions. And so this project is looking at the library and city hall, but that does not mean that we are not also thinking about and actively discussing the recreation center.
Or public green spaces, or a lot of the other amenities that have been mentioned throughout these meetings.
Just check it.
Yeah.
Okay, yes?
Oh, sorry, just, this is more of a, back to the visioning piece of it. Where in the option D are you hoping to have to create the sort of double-story, visual, you know what I mean, atrium-ish effect, or is that not
We
quite?
still have a little bit.
Sorry, maybe I
So
missed it.
we had a, it's not necessarily 2 stories in height, but we have like a story and a half
Okay.
in height in this area here.
Thank you.
So that it has a much stronger expression to the street. You can see a bit more glass there, and so that's where that would happen.
Okay, thank you.
And also, the entire first floor is gonna have a very high ceiling height, because of the auditorium, multi-purpose room. So that entire floor plate is up, and we can do a lot of things with that space.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so it'll be more impressive than walking into a ceiling of this height.
Thank you.
Yes?
Just to discuss the green roof idea, what exactly will that look like? And is it usable? Can you walk on it, or what?
No,
what is it?
typically you cannot walk on it. It's a special kind of a planting, and there are different ways of doing it, but it still has to drain, and we have to get water back to the roof, so to the drains. So have you, I'm not sure what you do in Vermont, but we've done them. We have very dry tolerant plants that we use in Colorado, but
yeah, I mean, there's different kinds. Most often around here are generally trays. So they're a way of helping with stormwater. They're a way of keeping temperature around the building lower. They're nice to look at if you're looking out over a roof, a little bit nicer, but it's not meant to walk on or anything like that.
Do you have to mow them?
no, there's minimal maintenance in them.
Like the hospital,
Different kind of system, but
but
similar
similar.
approach.
Are you thinking of decorative grasses which die off in winter and come back to life in summer?
Yeah, the plants will have to be selected for this particular environment.
Yeah, we've done a lot of decorative grasses that you're describing, but again, we're not quite to that level. But those are where we'll start exploring.
Well, I just wondered whether it was a usable green
No.
space or not.
No, it's visual, and as Steve says, it helps reduce the cooling load of the building. And it's just a very environmentally strong thing to do,
It's visual and functional,
and functional,
but no walkable.
not walkable. You're not going to play croquet or golf or anything out there.
But you also have to build into the plan the maintenance of that roof.
Yes.
Right? If it's a growing roof.
But that's where the trays come into effect, where you can remove the trays and replace the trays as well. So again, there are a variety of systems, just like a variety of windows, a variety of everything. We'll look at it and find out what is the best solution for this application. And it may not be that we have that much, but that is our goal, is to try and make as much as we possibly can. All right, any other, yes?
Just a question about windows. All the light is great and the windows are great, and there are times when if there isn't some kind of shading that you can do, you die because the sun is coming right in. It's really uncomfortable. Is that is part of what's going to be considered with the windows as well? I don't mean shades, but there's something that you
Yeah,
can do that just cuts the
there's films that we can put within it that will reduce the amount of heat that comes through. Sometimes we put fritted glass in that you can't really see, but it stops a lot of that bad sun coming in, if you will. So beyond just the shades. But most likely, in many of those areas, we would have shades. And we'll calculate it so that we're looking at the sun is it throughout the year and how the angle changes, obviously, and when we want the sun and when we don't want the sun as much. So. All right, so Steve is pushing me on here, but so we talked about these on Saturday and last Thursday, but these are the types of spaces, the maker space, again, focusing on technology, a teen space where there's a variety of things happening. These kids are playing games, these kids are just collaborating together. A digital lab. We're going to have a form of public art in some manner in the building, and having that welcome, wonderful senior fireplace area coming in. So we'll have lots of those spaces. And then just to kind of finish up here, is it not working? There we go. So we talked about sustainability. Here's that green roof. And even looking at how, we're exploring some geothermal, we're looking at photovoltaics. Doing commissioning is, I think, a given, is what we want to do. And so this kind of circles around here is that we think that the most sustainable building is the one that you all are going to love. And so it will incorporate a lot of these features, but it's the one that you will all come and use. So, yes?
What does building and envelope commissioning mean?
Thank you.
So, do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, the building commissioning is basically going through a detailed process where there's verification that the systems are working properly as they were designed and intended. So it's a more thorough analysis, starting from the very beginning of what that room is intended to do and making sure at the very end that it's actually doing that.
Thank you.
So we're not building this building in a factory, and so we don't have all the controlled environments. So we come back and we test it, and we make sure that it's doing what it was intended to. And a lot of times we'll find that things aren't performing quite the way they were supposed to, and the cost of that is many times offset by the savings that we find through the process. And it's just the nature of how things come together. Yes?
Have you considered PV tiles instead of panels and roof tiles?
We haven't gotten there yet.
Okay.
I'm sure we'll look at alternatives. Yes.
Can you list the sustainable materials? You have on the left side, just what are those?
These are materials that you used on another project recently, and some of them are more native materials.
Okay.
And some of them are recycled, made of recycled product. So again, there's just a variety of things that we'll look for. Obviously, materials that are within the local vicinity have a great sustainable quality to them. And then again, looking at materials that have been created from recycled products. So a variety of tactics.
So but I mean, that list is not necessarily ones that they could be used in a project.
We're not there yet.
You're
Yeah.
not, okay. I
Yeah.
wasn't sure if those were.
What we're trying to do here is reinforce the idea that we want this to be a very sustainable building.
Right.
And we're always talking about it, but we haven't dialed in and said exactly what roof system, what mechanical system. We're exploring the alternatives. We're looking at our budget and putting it all together.
Yep.
Yes?
I was wondering if anyone could put together a list of places that we could go that are already, have implemented a lot of these things. Like you mentioned public radio and the seating, but like are there places that we could look at the kind of glass that somebody's already using, the kind of glass we're talking about, or are there things in the Davis Center that might be similar?
Sure.
Or
I think
roofs or blue roofs. It would be great to be able to sort of go around and see the kinds of things that we're talking about.
I think VPR is a great facility to go see if you've never been there. It's a terrific design. But we can help the city put some things on the website, and if we say, well, we decided to use a blue roof, we can say, go to, within a reasonable distance, and see this, or click online to check this out. And so, but we're not quite there yet ourselves. We're still trying to figure out what is the right combination of all the above. But we want to underscore our commitment and the city's commitment and the library's commitment, because it's very important in a library, especially because we're bringing up generations through the library. And if we can reinforce these ideas, it'll be great. Yes?
Well, I just want to make a few comments. I think that we are very lucky that we don't have a building right now, and we don't have to retrofit an old building for modern library needs with digital and all of that. And we don't have to retrofit from that. We can start from where we are now and make it, for the future. I think we're very lucky that way. And I also like it that there are so many visual, comfortable, interesting pieces to this, that, you want to be there, and you want to be in that nook, and you want to be in that top room, and it's just interesting. It's not like a block that's sitting there, but it's not a Carnegie either. It's a modern library that's really attractive.
Well,
So those are my three.
Well, those are great comments, and we're trying to, what happens in a library today is going to change in 5 years, 10 years, and
But you've got flexibility.
we got the
built.
flexibility built into it.
Okay.
But this is not a library for one generation. It's a library for many, many generations, and there are many things to happen in this library. And I think once you get a facility like this, you will see how popular it will be. It will be the living room of the community.
I know that people from South Burlington go to Charlotte for the senior center. And I think that people will come to this library to this one, because it's nice, it's attractive.
Well,
So,
we have a talented design team here, so, yes. All right, any other questions? We'll move on, and we're just about done. So, we talked about the vision for the city center. It sounds like many of you have been thinking about this for a long time. And it's a compact, walkable downtown. It's a place for people to come together in gathering places. And so what we have done is basically created a building that creates a very dynamic street presence along Market Street. And it will serve as a civic gathering place for many ages and different types of gathering spaces. Opportunities for outdoor seating, abundant storefront glass for that pedestrian engagement at the ground floor. So as you walk along, you'll be able to see into the city hall. You'll be able to see in the auditorium if there's something happening there. There's a wind ensemble playing on Sunday. You might want to just walk in, or walking past the library, the fireplace, or the senior area, and playing board games, or just the kids in what they do in the library. So that's going to be a great addition to the street. And there'll be a strong visual connection to the upper levels because of the glass. And so as you walk across Market Street and look up, you'll see all this activity happening up there. And as the following last point is, it'll be a sustainable building to envision the city's future. So I think those are kind of the points, and most of the time everybody says, well, what's next? So if we think we're on track, and we're not going to take a straw vote, but I think we've come a long ways in the last few days, and we've gotten a lot of comments, and I know a lot of people have been writing tonight, and you've had a lot of questions, and that really shows your deep interest for the building. So here we are tonight, March 13th, suggesting what we believe the preferred option is. We are going to be going to City Council on April 16th for their approval to move forward. We're going to have a cost estimate done in great detail over the next several weeks, and we're going to be enhancing the design. So we're still working. The pressure's not off. Again, this is where we're going, April 11th, 2020. Mark that on your calendar. Be at Market Street. We'll be cutting that ribbon. But we've got a lot of things to do. We've got a lot more public outreach. We're going to meet with more groups, the high school kids, and here, so we're still gathering information. Are there any other questions? I think that's the end of, there's the beauty of it all.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.